You are India's first intimacy coordinator. Tell me first what an intimacy coordinator is and what is intimacy?
An intimacy coordinator is somebody who works with performers and with production, with a director to make sure that their vision is achieved, so with the creatives of how you want to tell the bit of intimacy, and with actors to make sure that their consent and their boundaries are upheld. Kabir Singh,
right?
Let's take
so
that
there was
first.
This whole, here was an abusive person who was the lead of a film who felt it was okay to assault his girlfriend.
Yeah, but his girlfriend also slapped him. Am I going to glorify Kabir Singh? Maybe not. I mean, I can show this is what happened, this is what it looked like. But am I going to then put those shots where I make him look like a superstar after having slapped her and saying, "Ye meri bandi hai"? No.
On one hand, Deepika Padukone, massive star. Her co-stars were nowhere near her in terms of the clout she brings onto a set, and then you're having to like coordinate these really tricky scenes and make them look as natural as possible.
She was very welcoming and she was very in on it with like the creative aspect of it, and also never to say no, I don't want to do this, no, I'm not going to do this, or like this is not worth my time. She went through the chops of every workshop, every rehearsal, asked me what even for intimacy, she asked me what the protocols were and how we should implement them.
So when you're watching a film and you see the actors in an intimate scene where they're supposed to be having sex, or something that involves domestic violence, or sexual harassment of some kind, one wonders how awkward that might have been for those two actors. Well, my guest today is an intimacy coordinator, India's first intimacy coordinator, who is a person who actually choreographs those scenes and actually decides and sort of monitors how this plays out and how comfortable everybody is on the set. She is the first person in our country to start doing this job, and she's now training a whole bunch of other people to do it as well. My guest today is Aastha Khanna, a young person who's changing the way we look at and we watch what's happening when intimacy happens on our screens. Aastha, thank you so much for speaking with me. I went down a rabbit hole of what intimacy coordinators do because it's so interesting, but you are India's first intimacy coordinator. Tell me first what an intimacy coordinator is and what is intimacy? Is it just the sex scenes? Is there more to it? What is it?
I love that you asked this question. It's usually something that I get faced with a lot, so I have a very rata answer for this, but I'll break it down for you. To begin, an intimacy coordinator is somebody who works with performers and with production, to make sure that that we can try and do a risk assessment of whatever is on the script that we're shooting, so that they can circumvent a lawsuit if there is any at play, with a director to make sure that their vision is achieved, so with the creatives of how you want to tell the bit of intimacy. So how a stunt coordinator or how a choreographer would work with a director. They'll give you a vision and then you have to kind of choreograph around it. And with actors to make sure that their consent and their boundaries are upheld, and at all times that they are made to feel safe is not the right word, brave enough to have a voice, despite the power dynamic that is forever and always at play on a film set. The reason I don't say safe is because it is very hard for one person to take the onus of safety in a space like a film set, which has so many different variables at play. So saying that I can make a safe space, it's a lie. What I can definitely do is try and create an environment and uphold an environment where people have a voice. And even if their voice gets muffled a little bit, I can be that person, the shoulders which they can jump off of, like the amplifier in some way. So that's what an intimacy coordinator is supposed to be doing. So what are these intimacy scenes, right? What you asked me. One would just imagine that an intimacy scene is one where there is sex or nudity or some kind of sex, can be with other people or with yourself, and then there is nudity. But actually in India, we've figured that the umbrella is much larger. The umbrella does include LGBTQIA plus stories, any stories that involve any form of gender and sexuality. Stories that may have aspects that have some kind of power dynamic at play. So like domestic violence. Of course, sexual violence. There's sexual violence, there's kink, there's dominant, BDSM, all of that stuff that comes into that kind of bracket. But there's also working with minors. Because more often than not, what we notice is that minors on a film set are actually never asked for their consent.
Okay.
So there will be this huge superstar actor who's playing a dad or a mum, you know, and they're bathing this 8-year-old, this 10-year-old, or they're picking them up and kissing them and hugging them and putting them on their lap, and that seems natural to us because we're watching it like a father and a daughter, that kind of story. But they're not actually really father and daughter, right? There are so many times, and as an AD I realized this, parents of children that are coming to shoot are giving them some form of positive reinforcement to make sure that they don't lash out on set. So like there is a 5-year-old kid who's being told, whose mom is telling us, whatever you want her to do, she'll do it, just give her Lays or just give her a chocolate. And if you keep feeding this child with junk food that they like, they will not retaliate, they will comply. But that's not consent. That's not a child understanding what is happening to them. Or a scene where a child is seeing something very gory, like a murder happening, or their parent committing suicide and hanging off of a fan, or you know, something like that. Like nobody's putting into like any thought around it. So
how would you, as now intimacy coordinator, let's take this step by step, but deal with the minor, like a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old on his set?
So as an intimacy coordinator, you're actually trained to have those conversations with children. Like asking for consent from an adult and asking for consent from a child is very different. It looks very different. When you're talking to a child, you need to explain to them that there is a certain thing that is going to happen and what exactly is their role in it. And how they are, like what is going to happen. So you know what, there's going to be this uncle who's going to pick you up and he's going to put you on the lap, and if at any point of time you don't want to sit on his lap, it's okay to get off. It's fine, don't worry about it. I'm here. If you have a problem, let me know. You know, stuff like that.
So, you know, if we roll back a little bit, right, in India I remember we used to have this like no kissing sort of clause thing that most of the big actors had, that we will not kiss on screen, we will not this do, we will not do that, because intimacy was off limits. And then there were certain people who would be typecast for being open to doing it till as recently as the early 2000s, and then there were those who just not. That is still there. From there, and I remember watching Gehraiyaan with Deepika Padukone, which is a film that you worked on as intimacy coordinator. So you directed, is it fair to say you directed a lot of those intimate scenes?
Okay, no. So Gehraiyaan was the first film that I ever got to work on as an intimacy coordinator.
Okay.
But it was a film that I was already working on as a DA. So there were two
reasons. What's a DA for our audience?
Is a director's assistant.
Okay.
So it's much like an AD, but we're not in the AD team, so to speak. We're not in the execution team. We're more in the creative team and in the handling what the director's ideas are, and you know, kind of working with that. So Shakun and I had been working together, and that's how I actually got into intimacy coordination. It was because of Gehraiyaan. But we had already got on board Dargai, who was the intimacy director.
Okay.
So she had done a couple of music videos with intimacy before, and she was a good friend of Shakun's, so he brought her on board to kind of navigate the scenes of intimacy, because most of them were again in song in the film. So she came on board to do that, and she directed. So she was the one that did the shot breakdowns and the choreography, and told the camera where it needs to be put, you know, and co-directed it with Shakun in terms of the story aspect of it. I coordinated the modesty garments and the barriers and the, you know, all the kit stuff. And I ended up, having like basic conversations with the actors, making sure that the set was a closed set. So everything that I could do in my capacity as a DA while also dipping my feet in, because again, what a canvas to paint on, right? Gehraiyaan being your first film as an IC, it would never happen.
Yeah. No, but so you said the barriers and basically like props that you used, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, the audience should know that when a film is doing an intimate scene, it's not just like chalo shuru ho jao. It's actually fully planned out, right? Where everyone's hand is going to be, where you're like.
It's like a
dance.
It's like a dance or a stunt sequence. Like you're gonna hit here, then this is gonna happen, then I'm gonna save, and then I'm gonna turn.
And then you're gonna turn, then the camera is gonna be here, then and this is what the camera is framing. Do they know that? Are the actors told that as well?
Yes. So the actors get to see what the camera is framing. They get to be in on where their hands are going and what their hands are doing. More often than not, a director will say, "I want them to make love," because the mood for the scene is X.
Yeah.
But the director is not equipped with the vocabulary to sit and then explain to the actors, I want your hands to be on the shoulders, okay, then after that bring it down, then nudge him in for a kiss, maybe give him a bite on the lip, let this guy do this, let that person do that. Like, and that kind of breaking it down like a dance and going, okay, for a couple of beats, this is what you'll do, then the tempo changes, then this is what you'll do. That's what an intimacy coordinator would do.
Right.
But everything is simulated. Nothing is
really happening.
No. So shooting real sex acts is illegal because that is porn, and it's illegal to shoot porn in India. It is legal in a lot of other countries with a license, but it's illegal otherwise to shoot it without a license, right? So even showing an erect penis on camera, if you were to, although I think I've only seen one in all of the stuff that I've seen in Indian television or cinema. But even if you were to show an erect penis on camera, it would have to be a prosthetic. Okay. Most genitalia that you will see on camera will be prosthetic. Even if you're seeing a female vulva, you'll end up seeing it with a merkin on. So a merkin is like a pubic wig.
Okay.
So that's what modesty garments are like. So there's a lot of that stuff. Then of course there's stuff like pasties and body tape and
so actually what you're saying is, so basically on screen it looks like these two people are lying one on top of the other, or one person is sitting on another person, but actually you've got
padding between them.
You've got padding between them, so they're not actually touching each other.
No. So genitals are never to touch each other. Which is the rule we follow. Which is why we use something called barriers, and there are two reasons for it. One is, of course, we don't want to shoot porn. Two is, it just makes it very uncomfortable and embarrassing, and it really gets in the head of the performer. Because you want to circumvent any possibility of an arousal on set. And also, a lot of people don't understand the concept of arousal non-concordance, which is when you get aroused without actually wanting to get aroused, right?
And that'll make the other person uncomfortable, and then you
and then they'll think that you were coming on to them, and then there's a whole other thing of like, I didn't tell at that point, but I could feel a little hard on at the back, and like they're like, oh shit, did she feel it? Like, or did he feel it? Like, oh my god. And then it's a whole like, and they're getting in their heads about it. And the minute you're getting in your head about something, you're not going to be able to perform. And you snap out of being a character. So you forget what the character's behavior or feelings are like in that moment, because you are too busy protecting your own self, the human being, in that space, which is what we want to try and
you know, what was that like also on Gehraiyaan? Because on one hand, Deepika Padukone, massive star. Her co-stars were nowhere near her in terms of the clout she brings onto a set, and then you're having to like coordinate these really tricky scenes and make them look as natural as possible. What was that like?
I have to say, she is probably the most professional person I have ever worked with in my life. When she's on set, she's not Deepika Padukone the star. She's Deepika Padukone the actor who's playing Alisha. and she brings that and that energy into welcoming other people to her space. And actually nobody else can do that in this kind of power dynamic, in this kind of just general aura of a superstar being on set. Nobody else can interrupt that beyond a certain point. Like they, you know, it has to come from that person to be like, if we need this to work, I will need to do the heavy lifting of making the other people comfortable around me. And she was very acutely aware of that. So much so that she is the one that said, okay, let's do workshops. Let's get to know each other. Let's get meals together. I want to get to know these people. We are playing a family.
Yeah.
We are like, I'm playing somebody's sister. I'm playing, being in a relationship with somebody for 6 years, living with them. Yes, that person has only done one film before and I've done 20. And they will be not a bag, I think a truck of nerves around me, but I'm aware of that. And that I think was very evident in the way that she carried herself throughout the entire film. She was very welcoming and she was very in on it with like the creative aspect of it. And also never to say, no, I don't want to do this, no, I'm not going to do this, or like, this is not worth my time. She went through the chops of every workshop, every rehearsal, asked me what even for intimacy, she asked me what the protocols were and how we should implement them. If that meant I'm saying, you know what, if somebody from your team is going to be watching the monitor, it's only fair that the other co-actor get the opportunity to have somebody to watch. Otherwise, I'm closing the set and I'm closing the rule is the same for both of you. For her to know that and actually
be okay with it.
Be okay with it, to be like, get everyone out. Gehraiyaan was the one was my favorite film in the sense that I have never had a more closed set in any other film. It was literally Sid, Deepika, Shakun, Kaushal the director, Kaushal the DOP, Shakun the director, me, and the focus puller outside, and that was that. That was the crew that was allowed to be on that set. That's 5 people.
Yeah. So, you know, I wanted to talk to you about the need for an intimacy director, right? Or a coordinator, because the biggest story that I remember reading is the story of Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct, which was that one scene that everybody watched and everybody's like, oh my God, and you know, she became a big star and all of that. But we found out much later that it was not by her consent.
Yeah.
And then there was the scene of Marlon Brando, you know, which I've still, you know, I read about it. Yeah, I haven't been able to like forget about it. It really bothered me. Would you tell that story?
Yeah.
And, I mean, from your point of view, as to why these things are wrong and why things are different today.
So basically, the story is that the director and the male actor decided that it was completely fine to not ask for the female actor's consent before raping her live on camera on a film set, because the director wanted very raw emotion and the acting to feel natural. I don't even want to get into whether or not he was able to achieve that, because
it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, do you go around murdering people because you want the killer to look like he actually murdered somebody and have the real guilt of having murdered somebody? When was the last time we made a huge actor actually jump off of a building?
Yeah.
Like, you don't do that, right?
And
so
the female actor in question was very young and suffered a great deal because of this
I mean, having had to have lived with that trauma for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
This is something that, again, a lot of people say to me, why do you need an intimacy coordinator and how can you parallel yourself to a stunt coordinator? Real bones could break if they weren't there on set. Yes, people could have to live with trauma for 20, 30, 40 plus years, sometimes their entire lives, that they've not been able to unpack it if you don't have an intimacy coordinator on set, and then there are things like this that happen. Where an actor is caught out off guard. There was a film that I worked on. I won't take names, but I have not worked on very many films as an AD, so it's up to people to find out. there was a male actor who was supposed to kiss in the film a much younger girl, and so he was actually not supposed to kiss. He was just supposed to make it look like he would violate her. He would go on to violate her, and we wouldn't see the violation aspect of it. So he was supposed to smear her, like make her wear a lipstick, smear it, pull her shirt a little, you know, just do a few of those like suggestive kind of things. And the male actor, in the flow of things, went on and kissed the actor during a take and said, "I'm a theatre actor and I just went into the flow of the scene." And that, wouldn't he do that? Wouldn't he hold her and just kiss her? And this female actor had no idea
that this was going to happen.
This was going to happen. It happened in front of us. Like, one is you hearing stories and seeing it in the papers and hearing people talking about it, and the other is you've seen it live happen in front of you, where somebody has been violated to a point where they didn't know what to say or do in that moment, apart from like if they had the agency to then just get up and leave. What do you do in that kind of situation, and how does one unpack that with you? Like, no producer is going to pay for therapy, no, for the next 20 years.
I mean, the lead actor of the female actor in Last Tango of Paris never acted again and became an addict.
I mean, one cannot imagine what they would have gone through, having to have felt like it was premeditated by so many people that were aware of what was happening. Like, one is to see one man has gone off a leash and just like you, that's one layer to it, where you feel like I got violated by an absolute, for the lack of a better word, asshole, because they just didn't know better.
Yeah, but to know that it was a conspiracy.
Yeah, to know that that there were so many people that were on it, and nobody thought that it would be important to, in that moment, either stop it from happening while seeing it happen live in front of them.
Nobody considered her human enough to seek her consent.
Yeah,
it's like what they used to do to horses on film sets back in the day, right?
Which is worse.
It is worse.
I mean, because they don't even have a voice and they can't come out and ever say what happened to them on a film set. But yes, I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah, I remember, and this is a much lighter example. In Gone with the Wind, Vivienne Westwood didn't want to kiss Clark Gable because apparently he had really bad breath, and he was such a big star that there was no polite way to tell him.
You can't tell him this.
So she just suffered through the length of that, of the production of that film. And I was like, she needed an intimacy coordinator.
That's why intimacy coordinators always carry breath mints. So in a situation where a director and everything is like, it's great, like you as an intimacy coordinator, this is how you would want a set to be. You're a fail safe, so you're just basically like the person that goes and says mint. And I've done that quite a bit. In fact, on a show that I worked on called Class, I had a phenomenal showrunner, Ashim Ahluwalia. What a brilliant man for being everything woke, but also at the same time, he's not trying to lather his vision onto anybody else. He wants for input. He would check with me. He would check with me on whether or not the actors are feeling comfortable to do something. He would always run through all of this. Like, he really took on to collaborating with my kind of like department very, very well. For somebody who has been in the industry for such a long period of time, I didn't expect for it to happen. He would constantly say to me, the only thing that I do on set is give mint. Like,
but Class would have been a tricky one. Class had a lot of intimate scenes. It was a lot of
and it was with completely new people. Actors that had never worked or had worked on very, very few projects before, and very young people. But yeah, it was great. I did one scene with Aisha Kanga and Zain in Zain Shaw in a car where their characters are having sex in the car, And I remember going on to set and both the actors looking at me and saying, let's make the best sex scene of the show. And they're in that mood. They're like giving each other high fives. They're like, okay, fine, let's figure out how we're going to do this. Let's get this position. And I'm like, okay, you want to raise your leg up to the head of the front seats guy? Yeah, cool, let's do it. And they've gone ahead and done it. And the reason, and when I asked them, I was like, how come, have you ever worked with an IC before? Have you done this before? They're like, no, we just feel super comfortable on this film set because we know that Oshim will never put a camera in a place which looks disgusting. And we know you're there, so if we feel uncomfortable, we tell you.
Yeah.
That trust factor came very handy for us.
So we talked a lot earlier when we were discussing this interview, we talked a lot about the gaze. Right, which is basically, we've had this happen in the past a lot of, I mean the films that I grew up on in the 90s, where there would always be one Thakur Vidwan Balatkar scene, right? And it would always be shot a certain way. And there was a lot of, and the way the woman was always shot, they were always like really close shots of heaving bosoms, for example. In a lot of these music, belly buttons. There was a lot of what India called eve teasing, which we now call sexual harassment. Thank you very much. There was a lot of that being done by the male lead of the film, and which was being shown as this is how you get girls to sort of, you know, agree to be your girlfriend or whatever, agree to marry you, agree to love you, is by harassing them until they, you know, sort of break down. How much of that is gaze? How much of that can be done differently? And that, I mean, the other question that I will ask you after that is, if that is what the story needs, then why not? I mean, should that moral baggage be actually placed on an act of, or you know, a work of fiction?
Okay, this is again, so a beautiful question because I've myself thought about it quite a lot. First of all, as an intimacy coordinator, you want to be there on set irrespective of what the gaze is. Because worrying about what the audience is consuming, what the maker is putting out, what the actors are consenting to, that's a whole other loop. Worrying about, is this person knowing that they are being shot and portrayed in this manner? In this moment, while it is being shot, are they comfortable? That is one aspect of it. So as an intimacy coordinator, you want to make sure that the people are feeling comfortable, shot is being done in an appropriate fashion, actor is going back home safe in their own body, comfortable with what they've shot, happy with who the actor is, who the director is, happy with the project that they've done, bye bye. Yeah. That's one aspect of it. But there is that layer that as an intimacy coordinator, you start to think about, what is the gaze with which something is being shot? Is it, while it is being shot, is it irking me? And sometimes it does. Where the camera gets put changes how the audience views something.
Okay.
That's what the gaze is.
Give me an example.
If Amitabh Bachchan is walking in slow motion and you're taking a low angle shot, even if he is the biggest criminal on the planet, the audience will idealize him because it's a superhero shot.
Because you play that music and he'll enter a certain way.
Even if it's not the music, and of course there is sometimes the manipulation of the sound effects and stuff like that. But in general, in the way that you're viewing something, you're looking up at it.
Yeah.
Right? Storytelling is not just my dadi is telling me a story and I'm imagining it in my head. Filmmaking is, I'm showing you the story.
Yeah.
So I am showing you the story how I envision the story as a filmmaker. So my gaze is everything. Why in a lot of cases would a book be different to the same book being made into a film? It's because when you read the book with your vision in it.
Yeah, and this is the filmmaker's vision.
Filmmaker's vision of what that story would look like. And it may or may not be the same as yours. And that's what gaze is about. Now, if the filmmaker's gaze is a predominantly very patriarchal male gaze, it will be that gaze where a camera will pan up and down a woman's body when she's moving. It will be that lower back to upper back and like really close skin this thing, or like their belly button being in complete focus, like a close-up of the belly button, of the breasts. A lot of these hyper-sexualized item songs that, I mean, there are certain item songs that have been done beautifully, where, like, I mean, I'll give you an example. If I'm not wrong, Bidi Jalaile, it was very well shot.
Yeah.
I mean, although it was one female actor sitting, like, dancing in front of so many male people, and you're seeing that, but you're buying into it. You're buying into that world, you're buying into that story, you're buying into the fact that there would be that woman in that kind of scenario. It works. It works that in that kind of scenario, there would be one man who will do like a tili on her waist. Okay. But will I then focus in on her belly button and then go right up to her breasts and then go up to her neck and like bring it back down and keep doing that in loop to try and titillate the audience? No, I won't. The minute that I go into doing that, what I'm trying to say is, this is what you're supposed to be looking at as an audience.
This is how you're supposed to look at it.
This is how you're supposed to look at it.
Right.
Similarly, if I'm doing a story of suppose the protagonist of a film is a rapist or a serial killer. The way I shoot that story, I should be able to tell that story. First of all, let's put that out there. As a filmmaker, I'm not one to say that you can impose a moral compass on another filmmaker.
So for example, for the audience benefit, Kabir Singh, right?
Let's take
so
that.
There was this whole, I mean, here was an abusive person who was the lead of a film, who felt it was okay to assault his girlfriend.
Yeah, but his girlfriend also slapped him.
Huh.
So here's what I'm trying to say. Now, do I have to like the film? No, I don't. It's personal preference. I may never go and watch a film like that as Aastha. But can I, as Aastha the filmmaker or as Aastha a person from the industry, turn around and say, let's censor that voice? No. The reason I wouldn't say that is because there are stories like this. So while we as an industry are a mirror to society, okay, so yes, while we are as an industry are influencing society, we're also a mirror to society.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to tell a story of what is real to their world, and they may have seen that happen in their life, they may have seen a relationship like that, and it's real, it's true. So they've gone ahead and told that story. That's fine. That's okay. I mean, you and
it's okay to tell the story of Kabir Singh, but it's not okay to glorify it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But how I tell the story is what makes all the difference in the world. The reason I need to know how to tell the story better is because I need to then, in that moment, be aware of who is going to consume that story. You are not telling the story for yourself, and it might be true, the story that you're telling. But when you're telling the story and you're telling it to somebody, then you have to know who you're telling it to.
Yeah.
So you have to be aware of your audience. When you're aware of the audience being an extremely intelligent audience, you're also aware a lot of that audience is not very intelligent audience. And in that moment, the onus of what that vision is and how that story looks like in your eyes makes all the difference. That's how they're going to receive it. So, am I going to glorify Kabir Singh? Maybe not. I mean, I can show this is what happened. This is what it looked like for them in that relationship. It's fucked up, and it's like abusive, and it's like not okay the way the two of them were. Or maybe, you know what, in their world it's completely fine. In their world, both of them slap each other, both of them hit each other, both of them get on top of each other, both of them love each other madly. And they're both okay with it. Who are you to say no? Nobody is. But am I going to then put those shots where I make him look like a superstar after having slapped her and saying, "Ye meri bandi hai"? No. The reason I won't do that is because I don't want people to then take away from it that you can get away with doing this. That is the moral responsibility as opposed to that, and that's the gaze. and that's what gays is. I mean, set aside Kabir Singh, that
You also talked about, you know, LGBTQI scenes, trans scenes. So, for example, for the longest time in our films, and I had this conversation with Sushant as well, Deepika as well, we were talking about it, trans people were actually used for comic value. They were laughed at. Gay people were always shown as excessively camp, effeminate, they would dress outrageously. It was almost like they were meant to be comic relief for all of society, and they were meant to always look and sound like this, right? Is there a role there for an intimacy coordinator to sort of break that down in a way that is more acceptable? What if you encounter a director who says, "No, I want it to look like this only"? You know, till very recently it was happening.
Oh yeah. So there are directors that will come up to you and say, "This is what I understand of this particular community. This is my character. I've written a character. This character is camp.
Yeah.
This character is effeminate."
नहीं तो लोगों को मालूम कैसे पड़ेगा
कि वो gay है? हाँ. But point is कि in a lot of cases आप इतने heteronormative हो जाते हो. You're so.
What is heteronormative mean?
Heteronormative is a heterosexual person thinking what is normal.
What is me is normal.
What is me is normal, and what
And
I
from my
think is
perspective,
normal
is normal for
everybody around me.
Yeah.
So how I perceive love as a heterosexual person is how gay people love. It's the same way. This entire idea of the yin and yang, there has to be a feminine and a butch combination. So even if I'm telling a story as a heterosexual person and I've said, okay, you know what, I'm woke enough to now tell a story about two gay people. I've got two men, one has to be slightly feminine, one has to be slightly masculine. I've got two women, one has to be slightly butch, one has to be slightly effeminate. So why is there this logic that a butch person will only be attracted to an effeminate person? Two effeminate people can be attracted to effeminate people. And it doesn't matter where on the spectrum you are, you could just be attracted to what you are attracted to. Yeah. Like why would you imagine constantly that there has to be that one has to be muscular, or like this idea of like boy cut hair. If you're doing women gay stories, that's something that always happens. This one woman is looking like, you know, dresses in a t-shirt and a flannel shirt and a pair of not well fitting pants and like boy cut hair, and then there's this one girl who's like actually kind of effeminate, wears jhumkas and a kurti and whatnot. Why? I mean, it can be two people that look exactly the same, dress exactly the same, feel exactly the same, they can fall in love with each other. And that's okay. Again, trans people don't understand. First of all, they don't understand what the L and the G part of the LGBTQIA plus is. Like the L and the G also we haven't kind of overcome. So the B is completely not there. We don't discuss B because B basically
nobody knows what to do with it.
B means you're confused. So the B is basically bisexual. Bisexual is not within the binary again. It doesn't mean that you are bisexual, that means you like men and women. It can be I like women and a trans woman. It can be I like women and a trans man. It can be I like women and a non-binary person. It can be I like man and a non-binary person. It can be any two sexualities is bisexual. Which again, it's a whole other rabbit hole to go down. Feel like people need to go to college and go through a 3-year course on gender and sexuality to fully understand it. Honestly, I don't fully understand it either. I don't think anybody is being true to themselves if they say they fully understand it. There are more exceptions than the rule on any of this. But the idea of all of it is love is love. And it has to be and the stories have to be told in a neutral gaze, in a way that is inviting people from the community and from other experiences of their lives to feel like they can connect to it. As opposed to boxing things. Because the idea of creating that community and idea of talking about spectrums is that you can't box things. And the minute that you start stereotyping them and making them heteronormative, which is like what will an uncle and an auntie in a middle class household in Indore understand of a gay person if I don't make them camp? How about you teach them? How about you tell them that this person could be gay and they don't necessarily have to look like what you think they should look like. They could be gay and be your paper wala and look like that guy. They could be trans and be in office, coming to work wearing a trouser and a shirt and have a mustache and whatever, right? They can be the most normal people, and normal in the sense heteronormal people.
So tell me something, you're a fairly young person. Is it a challenge when you go out on set and you're dealing with directors who've been doing this for ages, who've had certain ideas of how things have to be done, and you have to, your voice needs to be fairly firm about what can and cannot happen. How do you handle that as a young woman on these sets?
It's hard, and it requires a lot of work on my own self, because I have to really work on something I like to call my resilience basket.
Okay. What is the resilience basket?
It is the time that I need to take for myself, because scenes of intimacy and just going on set and being in that pressured environment can take a toll on me and my mental health. A lot of the times, in alleviating the pain from other people having to go through a lot of conversations, I have to deal with the patriarchy. I have to deal with the comments that involve body negativity and like people talking about stretch marks and how this person's bosom doesn't look okay on camera. Or like this person is looking ugly, or like why do they not want to show their body, or whatever. A lot of the load of those conversations is stuff that I have to have.
So you're absorbing as a barrier so that it doesn't have to,
And I'm also retaliating by saying, but no. Or like, if I'm talking for somebody, or if I am amplifying their voice in upholding their consent, I'm having that conflict conversation, as opposed to letting them be that person that has to have it. So if I'm the person that is doing that, a lot of the times, I'm like shifting the sands under people's feet a lot, because there are a lot of people that can't handle that voice coming to them, and in trying to make sure that I don't throw it off guard completely in a way that I get thrown off set and they get to do what they want to do anyway, I have to still make sure that I'm doing it in a very tactful manner. So I'm learning as I go every day. And while I'm learning and I'm picking up on all of this, I'm really exhausting a lot of my own self.
Yes.
Like, there are times that I come back home and I'm just like, I'm infuriated and I need to vent and be like, you cannot believe the kind of bullshit I had to listen to on set today. And then there are times that I'm just like exhausted and I just don't want to see another human being. I don't want to speak to anybody. And so I need to build that resilience basket. I need to go back. I need to replenish myself. I need to go tell myself, okay, you know what? I'm still young. I'm still experiencing. There are times I make mistakes. There are times that somebody says I'm not comfortable doing something, but because the director goes up to them and directly asks them, why are you saying you're not comfortable? They'll be like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Then the director looks at me and says, you're trying to fuck with my set.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, but I'm not. Yeah. And I get stuck in between in a couple of places.
And also that, the power dynamic is very different from when you ask someone if they're okay with doing something and the director themselves
decides to go in and have a confrontational conversation. You can't do anything about that. And in that moment, you can only interrupt that as much as you possibly can. You also have to bear in mind that the production and the director are the people that hire me. I don't get paid from elsewhere. So if I'm making them completely unhappy to a point where they are going to just turn around and say, we won't call her back. We won't call her back. And that's happened too. Because I can tell you this one experience, and I faced clear ageism on it.
Okay.
Because I was constantly told, we've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
We have done the most intimacy scenes that India has seen in the last 20 years. As a production, who are you to tell us how to do it? And I'm like, but you just hired me. Why did you hire me? And why are you calling me to back or beyond in different parts of India if you don't trust the work that I'm going to do? And if you trust the work that I'm going to do,
then let me do my work.
Let me goddamn do it.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, let me go home. And I had to reach that point where I told them, I'm not coming back. And I had to tell the actors, I'm very sorry, but either you find another intimacy coordinator who can handle this shit, or then I'm very sorry. Like,
and for you personally, do you get a lot of, oh, tum sex scene shoot karte ho?
Oh, yeah. I've gotten porn director ho. I've gotten tum porn director ho. Hey, that is a really good job. You get to watch people have sex all day.
Okay.
And I'm like, yeah, I do, but I'm the one making them do it more often than not. So it's very technical to me. But yes, I get all these very bizarre comments. Okay, I'm telling you, talking about the chudiya, we were talking about it just. I just went on a film set where I was doing a demonstration of a particular scene, and I got a comment from behind the monitor, and I don't remember who it was that said it to me, but one of the people that was there on set, saying, you know, it's really bizarre that you're doing all these sex positions in demonstration while you're wearing these bangles. And I'm like, I just got married. That has nothing to do with the work that I'm doing. Like, there is no correlation whatsoever. But in that moment, you're zapped, because how do you deal with that comment? And then you come back and you just laugh it off. And then you just say, you know what? It was a good day on set. The actors were happy. But it requires time for me to go back and just be like, okay, I need time for myself. I need time to, you know, just be with the people that I love. Be with the people that make me feel safe. Be with the people that replenish my voice. So that then I can go back and be that fighter on set again for other people. Another kind of space where I feel like this is anytime I'm shooting any kind of sexual harassment. I have to really work on myself before I go in to shoot. So I love to drive, and I usually, if it's in Bombay, then I will make sure that I'm driving myself with like music and just taking my time to get into it. Because if I'm not in my neutral and I get triggered, I can't help anybody. Because then I have to ride my own trigger wave to then reach a point of being able to help anybody else in a situation. And as a woman, and as many women out there, we've all gone through some form of molestation and some form of violation. And there, you just never know what can trigger you. Sometimes it's the slightest comment, and it can just throw you off completely. Where it can just be something like, I want her to choke her, yeah. It should look like he's literally squeezing the life out of her. And that comment is just the director's way of trying to explain to me in his whatever their vocabulary is, that this is what I'm trying to achieve, that rawness with this man's face, right? With the expression, I want it to look like he's squeezing the life out of her. I am gone in that moment. I have left the building. I have gone on a walk. I'm physically there, but my brain has just gone. It's gone because that description has done something to me. So in order to be able to cope with that, I have to go back and be like repad myself constantly. And as the person who's young and with like being the person that I am, I'm still going through a lot of these experiences in real time in my own life. Just getting married, going through family drama, going through all of these different stages of life. I will go through motherhood, maybe have a completely different perspective on how a scene of childbirth is shot. Again, which is something like an intimacy scene. This idea of like a woman standing and groaning and abusing the shit out of somebody while pushing a baby out and going, ah, might change completely after I experience that, see it, whatever. And I feel like a lot of my own personal experience I do bring to the table with the creative aspect of it. So that I feel is that becomes my downfall with my age. which not downfall, it's my pitfall with my age, it's not my downfall, hopefully. But yeah, but I have to say there are a lot of filmmakers that are happy to have a younger voice on set. Because there are a lot of the times that they feel like these younger people find it much more comfortable to talk about all of this. And they don't want, like, I had a filmmaker tell me, I'm so glad you're not a prude auntie.
You're also in the same age group as the actors.
Performer, slightly younger than them. You know, sometimes I will say something that the young actors will slightly feel shy about themselves also. You know, there'll be certain actors who will be like, they've never been spoken to like this before. Like, nobody has told them before that, can I touch your breasts? Or like, can this person touch your breasts? Can you, okay, can we, like, they get flustered when you say words like breasts. I said something like post-coital and they were like, I'm writing a science exam. And I'm like, no, I'm just using technical stuff rather than using after orgasm ka lete hue log, you know, like randomly talking. Otherwise other people don't know how to say orgasm. Like when they're discussing, they're like, and then she climaxes. And then they are at the pinnacle of pleasure. And like, they write random stuff on scripts. And then they melt into each other. And that is like a whole together another level of miscommunication. Because melt together how? Right? And having had age on my side and being de-shamified the way that I have been with my upbringing makes me somebody that can have those conversations without being fazed by them myself. Because the minute that I bring my own shame to the table...
How were you de-shamified when you were upbringing? What does that mean?
Oh, I definitely feel like I was never brought up like a daughter. First of all, I belong to a middle class Punjabi family, and we lived in Calcutta. My parents still live in Calcutta. I was a single child, so the daughter, the son, and all of these other genders that my parents could have, they've had in one. And they've treated me like that from the beginning. Always had a voice at the table. Also, my parents were very young when they had me. My dad was 24, my mom was 23. Still pretty young. I mean, in today's terms, I'm 29 and I don't have a child. So, I still feel like a child. So, I think they were children when they had me. They always made sure I had a voice at the table. They always made sure that they would address anything that was even remotely shameful to address, that would be considered shameful to address between generations. And I'll give you two of these examples. There's two instances of my life that that sex-wise I found very interesting that happened to me. As a curious child, I was someone who used to love opening the drawers in the house and stuff. And my mom would usually cordon off certain parts of the house and say, these parts of the house, and you're not supposed to go into them, because she would feel like you'll dirty them, or like you sit on the white sofa and it'll get dirty or whatever, you know. And the curious child in me decided I would keep going through some drawers and stuff like that. So I went into my parents' bathroom, and in that bathroom I found a condom. At which point I had absolutely no idea what a condom is. Or what you're supposed to do with it. So I've opened it and I thought it was a balloon, and so I started filling water in the balloon and started making these like loops and throwing them out the window. And then one I threw, and then I realized that it didn't burst. Right? And when I realized that it didn't burst, I was like, oh shit, now somebody's going to find it there, right? Like, if it's burst, it's burst. It's a balloon. People have not looked beyond it. Bacche ne pheka. But because if there's like water balls sitting on the ground in the parking lot, people are going to notice. So I've got down. Very quickly I've picked it up. And I brought it back home. I don't know how to dispose of this. So I've pierced a hole into it, pulled out the water, this knotted condom, left it in the drain in my bathroom, because I just didn't know. First I tried to flush it. Didn't get flushed also. I was like, God damn it, what is this thing? And then I just left it there because may have lost interest, or I just got frustrated and left it there. The next day, my mother saw it in my bathroom, and her first reaction was she thought that it was probably the house help. And maybe, you know, when I was not at home, because my mother and my father both were working, she thought maybe, you know, that we have a young house help, maybe they had somebody over, didn't know how to dispose of it, whatever. But she wanted to make sure she asked me first. So she asked me, and first she saw that मैं थोड़ा झूठ बोलने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ to try and get out of this stupidity that I have done. But then she realized that I've got into this curious phase and found this condom. And she sat me down and had a full conversation with me about why people use condoms. And after that I was like, ew, that's disgusting. I was like, I thought it was a balloon. Right?
How old were you then?
I don't know, it must have been 8 or 9. 9 maybe. And I hadn't even hit puberty then, and I didn't have my period, and I didn't know anything at that point. And my mom talked me through the entire thing. And then my mom told me, this is probably a good time to tell you that Santa doesn't exist. There's no tooth fairy. I mean, if I'm telling you about sex, then I'm telling you about how you came and you didn't fall from the sky and I didn't pick you up from kachre ka dabba, then I must, because that was also something my parents used to tell me, like, humne tumhe kachre ke dabbe se utha tha. They were like, probably a good time to just break all the, break everything that you have truly believed for all along. Now you're an adult, great, good to know, now you know everything about everything. Great. So I remember the first, I was in class 5. The first girl, I went to an all-girls school. The first time a girl in a class got her period. Nobody in the class knew, apart from me, amongst the girls,
what it was,
what a period was. And I remember her going and crying and howling in the bathroom, and all these other girls going around her and trying to figure out what is happening. And then we realized that there was a trail of blood, and I just turned around, went to the staff room and asked for a pad. Told one of the teachers that, you know, we have somebody who's got their period. My teachers were zapped because my teachers were ashamed of the fact that I knew. I have had the funniest experiences in school. I've had experiences around when my breasts grew too much for the rest of my body, that my teachers would tell me to slug and all slouch to keep them in and not sit straight. I've had situations where and because of these situations in my life, my parents had to always work against it. They had to always turn around and say, no, you will not slouch. You know, you should know what sex is about. You should know what a lesbian is. You should know what it means to be gay. If you do kiss a girl in school, it doesn't make you wrong enough to be expelled from school. If you did kiss a girl in school, and even if you did it for fun, there is absolutely no reason a teacher should expel you. They should talk to you about it and be like, is this where you're, or are you doing it for fun? Are you doing it to like make conversation? And if you're doing that, then, you know, maybe not, or like reprimand you. I got threatened by my school at one point. That I didn't get threatened actually. That's a lie. I had the principal of the school call me home, call me to her chamber to tell me that my behavior, if I was holding hands and kissing my other girlfriends in school, it was inappropriate behavior and that I should be thrown out of school for it. And that's when my parents had to turn around and say, you know what, we need to go in and have a conversation with these people. That's the kind of upbringing I'm talking about.
But now you're no longer the only intimacy coordinator.
No, I'm not. Thank God for it.
How many others do we have?
We have at least, I mean, I've trained 6 and there were 1, 2, so we have about 9 or 10 of us now in India, through Pan-India.
And you guys get into like a huddle circle on a regular basis?
Yeah, we do actually. We have something called the Intimacy Collective, which I founded when I realized that I didn't have a community of people to go back to and talk to about the venting that I need to do after set. you have to really go back and you have to find a community, because no other person really truly understands what you're doing on set. Like, how am I supposed to then sit and explain to them what my experience was if they don't know what I do?
Yeah.
So it was really important to find a community, and so I founded one, and it's called the Intimacy Collective. We created guidelines, we sat together and kind of worked through like you know how you create, how the Constitution of India was made. I love saying this story. But what they basically did was they went through the constitution of all the really amazing countries in the world that were doing really well at the time, and then they decided to take the best from all of them and create the Constitution of India, which is kind of how we made the guidelines. we went through SAG-AFTRA and ACTRA and BEC2, and all of these, by the way, are unions of actors and directors and producers from around the world that have guidelines around how to shoot intimacy, that have been doing this work for a little while before we got into it. So we basically went into a deep dive as a community, and we said, you know what, let's all go through it and let's all find what works best for India, and let's create this document. And so we did together, and we exchange notes all the time on the shots that we're doing. We make sure that the productions aren't undercutting us as a community against each other, pitting us and saying, I'll give you 5,000 rupees less, I'll give you 5,000 rupees less, and having us, go against each other. Because we're so few of us, it's so important for us to be together, which is why we were like, okay, you know what, and everybody was so happy to be a part of the community when I thought about it. So it started with a WhatsApp group, and now it's a registered company, which is great. And then I have the Intimacy Lab, which is the company through which I train people.
Right.
And we've done one whole cohort, so we have 6 people that are now certified. One of whom is the first male South Asian intimacy coordinator, certified South Asian intimacy coordinator. Fantastic. Group of people. I have one of my students is a therapist. She worked in child psychology and psychiatry for a little while, moved to doing this work, found it interesting, came to me doing this work. One is a non-binary person. They are in Sweden. So it's just kind of like blown up a little bit for me, because I never expected it to happen. But I'm so glad that we have an army, because now we can ask for our communities within the film industry to adopt having intimacy coordinators as, if not a mandate, then a strong guideline at least. Couldn't do that when I was the only person, because I could never handle the entire workload on my own. But now there are a lot of people, and they all want work. So I'm sure that we can slowly come to a point where it becomes a norm, and there are more people that want to do it.
Aastha, thank you so much for having this conversation. It was brilliant, and I wish you very good luck.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here with you.
Thank you.